So today, just as an impromptu kind of thing, I was talking to my very dear friend, someone I absolutely adore out of Illinois, Lynn Madison. Lynn and I are friends. We're both educators. She's remarkable. I jokingly say we're two peas in a pod because we are very similar in our style. We're both passionate about seeing people succeed, and we've been doing it a long time. So Lynn and I were just having a little bit of a catch up. We hadn't talked to each other for a bit of time, and I said, "Can we just like connect and have a conversation and just hang out?" And from that came a little video. I asked if I was she was willing to let me record our conversation because I felt that there were so many things that really needed to be talked about. And she said, "Absolutely." So from this little bit of time, she'd been teaching during the day, so she looks better than I do, which is also fine. From this just catching up connection, beginning of the year kind of thing, from between two friends, became a really good conversation about education and why it's important, and getting agents in the room and getting brokers to understand, and so many other things. When you've been in the business as long as she and I'm only 37 years this year, she's 40 years. We've seen so much and we understand it on a much deeper level in some ways. And so I love just hanging out with my buddy, talking about really important things, and I hope you feel the same way. Well, right now, I'm really excited to introduce you to somebody I think the world of. She is a remarkable woman. She's a force of nature. She is the personification of education. She's a leader in the real estate industry. She's just somebody I'm very, very grateful to call my friend. And she and I talk every now and then, but frankly, for me, not nearly enough. And we were just having a chat, and it was like, should we talk about this on a video? Could it be helpful to someone? And I thought it should and could. So please, Lynn Madison, my dear friend Lynn Madison, out of Chicago, introduce yourself if you don't
Hi,
mind.
everybody. I'm Lynn Madison, and I could say almost identical things about my friend Ginny here. But yeah, we were just sitting here chatting because we were trying to catch up. We hadn't talked in a while, and got on to the subject of education, and that's what I do now. I've gone through being a top producing agent to being a award-winning managing broker and all of that, and turned my talents to doing education quite a few years ago. And I've been privileged to have been a contributing author or the author of many of NAR's programs. And it has given me a perspective that I certainly didn't have before.
But
So
what you just said is, I think, one of the most profound statements, which is that you and I did kind of the same thing. I think yours in a more powerful way than I, but that we took our experience base. I started in real estate 37 years ago this year, and I was in management most of my career. I started in management in 89, continued managing all through my career, and ended corporate management because I just didn't want to do it anymore in 2009. But when you have been and volunteered at the in organized real estate since 89, so
yeah, me too.
When you have experience that, from the interaction with agents piece to understanding how agents screw up. I know that's hard to believe, but they do.
I thought they only did that in Illinois, so it happens in other places.
No, I can attest to both Connecticut and California.
Yeah.
That we both ended up going into a place where we took what we had learned, because we're both learners, you and I. We took what we had learned, and we felt an obligation to give that back to our industry, to give it back to the people that come through our lives. You're still doing orientation in Illinois. Talk about that, please.
Yeah, I just did an orientation today. We had 165 brand new agents in our orientation program. Now, I'm with a local association here in Illinois that has 21,000 members. So we have a lot of members, a lot of brokerages, but that's 165 brand new people coming into the business. And we all know, and I am not putting any blame here whatsoever whoever on pre-licensed instructors, they're doing the best they can to teach the agents what they need to teach the people what they need to know to pass the test to become an agent.
Exactly.
That's their job. And I stick up for them when I got their six, as they say. I got them. But the bottom line is somebody, and I don't know who that somebody is, needs to take the bull by the horns and fix the damn tests so that we stop asking them and teaching them these things, because there are other things they could be learning in pre-licensing that they're not learning. Because when I get them, I just kind of, they told me one day it was like drinking from a fire hose when they come to orientation.
That doesn't surprise me with you, my friend.
Because I'm trying to give them, and then I have other people who say I've taught them everything I know in 7 hours. So, it goes both ways. But I worry for them, and I worry for the clients that they're going to represent, because I also find an awful lot of managing brokers are not managing their agents.
Correct. Oh my gosh.
And they're not giving them the direction they need. Let me give you a quick example. We have a multi-board regional contract in Illinois. We do not have a statewide contract. Don't get me into why. I go ballistic, but we don't have one. California has a statewide contract. Is that true?
That's correct. Other than San Francisco.
Right. And Wisconsin has one, and Texas has one, but we can't get one in Illinois because the north part of the state and the south part of the state don't like each other. So we're still fighting our own little version of a civil war here. So we don't have a statewide contract. And by the way, I don't care who hears me say that. I say it out loud to people. But here's part of the problem with that. We have a contract tutorial on our board website where I walk them through the whole entire contract, page 1 through page 13. I asked 165 people today, how many of you were aware of and how many of you saw and watched the tutorial? 45. And most of them said, I didn't even know it was there. Now, our staff tells them that when they come on, but they get overwhelmed with all of the emails and the information from their new brokerage company, how are their managing brokers not telling them this stuff is there? So I'm just at a loss as to understand why people are not taking advantage of the education that we're trying to give them. It's scary.
And it's on so many levels. And I'm in the process of doing a new agent series for my YouTube channel. I did the first recording. I'm going to add some collateral material, but I spoke to exactly what you just said, that you're okay, you got your test. Congratulations. Yeah. Please understand, pretty much every broker will hire you, because very few brokers go through a real process of culling out those who don't have a desire or a need or the skill set, if you will, no diminishment meant, to succeed. And oh, by the way, most of what you learned in your class and your schooling to get your license, you're never going to use it again. The only thing I remember is 43,560 square feet. That's what I got. That's what I got. And is that even right anymore?
I don't even know if that's right, because I've never used it in my life.
Maybe 42,000.
It's some big number with 4s in it.
It's got 4s in it. It begins with a 4. And there's a comma. There's a comma.
Yeah.
But that is, people, I get excited for them because they get excited. I'm getting a real estate license. I'm doing this, but they're not equipped. They don't understand what's required. And frankly, and I love brokerages, and San Diego County, as an example, 65% of the brokers in San Diego County, and by the way, my county is about 23,000 members, they're independent individuals with no franchise affiliation, which I don't care either way, but that often is that broker who's also the rainmaker, which means that the individuals in their offices are not getting paid.
Yeah.
And then you and I both, we both bitch about this. And yes, I use that word on purpose. We both bitch about this. We are both passionate educators. We both deeply, profoundly care about the student in the room, but we can't get the students in the room, Lynn.
No, I know. And I know the associations are trying, they're doing, it's just, I think we just have people right now who don't understand why they need the education, or honestly think they don't need it.
Yeah.
I've yet to figure out what's going on, because it wasn't 5 years ago, and we would be putting 100 people in a room for a designation course.
Oh yes, I remember.
And now we're lucky we can get 25 people in a
Yeah,
room
yeah.
for a designation course. I know part of the problem is, and I don't know if it's a problem, part of the issue is a better way for me to put that, is that they can do some of this stuff online. And I get that, but a online with a live instructor is still so much better than just sitting there staring at a computer screen, reading something, answering a question, and then moving on to the next chapter. You have nobody to ask questions of. You have no, it's better than nothing, but it shouldn't be the primary way people are getting educated. And yet I'm beginning to wonder. We just the other day, I wrote the 45-hour post-licensing class for Illinois realtors. And that's what it's the mandatory class all new agents have to take in their first renewal period. And it's 45 hours. And we tried an experiment. We were doing a hybrid class. We'll do it live, and you can also do it on Zoom. And I don't like hybrid classes. I think it takes away from both sides. I just got done doing a Zoom class today, and I focus all of my attention on my people on Zoom rather than splitting it up. My Zoomers are there. Okay. So we did this. This was just last week. We had 5 people who wanted it live and 27 people who wanted to do it on Zoom. So we moved the whole class to Zoom. And I told the 5 people who wanted it live, I said, you're better off on Zoom and letting me focus on you than trying to split it up the other way. But so many people, they don't understand networking either. Can I just throw that in there for a minute?
I agree with you.
I asked, we've got people doing something here in the Chicagoland area that I think is just a disaster. If they have a buyer who wants to look at a house and they, for some reason, cannot show that property, for whatever reason, they're calling the listing agent and asking the listing agent to show it for them. And I keep saying to them, why? And we don't use buyer representation agreements here in Illinois. We don't have to. So I would say maybe it's 50-50, that half the people do and half the people don't. So you have no buyer rep agreement, no way to keep that buyer loyal other than what you do for them. And you're not showing houses, and you're sending them into the clutches of a listing agent. And I'm not being mad at the listing agents. All it takes is the buyer likes that agent better than you because they think you're doing a better job, and you just lost your buyer. So when I tell them you should be finding somebody in your office to show for you, do you know what they tell me? I don't know anybody in my office. I'm done. I don't even know what to say to these people anymore. What do you mean you don't know anybody in your office? Well, they don't have office meetings. Some of our offices don't even have offices. We have people with 700, 800, 900 agents in their office, and the agents don't know anybody. They're not understanding how important networking is. So there was someone at our Illinois Realtor meetings last week. His name is Kyle Sheely, Sheele. Great speaker, entrepreneur, millennial. He stood there on that stage and said, one of the things that's going to ruin business in general is going to be the lack of networking. How do we, and I need to find either him on YouTube or someplace. It's on my list of things to do this week before I take off again to go someplace else. I need to find him standing there saying to everybody, you need to network. Because when I say it, I think all the millennials look at me and go, yeah, whatever, boomer. And they don't even understand why they need to network. So how do we
I'm going to track that guy down. I'm going to try to make that happen for both of us.
Let's see if we can't get him, and let's see if we can't
do exactly what we're doing right here. Maybe I can convince him to do that. Yeah, let me do that. Let me try that. I wrote him down. I'm going to track him down. I can find almost anybody.
Yes, I know you can.
So
I have utmost faith in that you can find almost anybody.
I feel the same way. We are my whole thing when I was in Nebraska, and I had the opportunity to teach there last year, and I'm going back in April. And when I asked the room, I was teaching senior real estate stuff, and I asked the room, probably about 50 people, how many of you have been in real estate 10 years or less? And 2/3 of the room raised their hands.
Yeah.
And all that said to me was that this 2/3 of the people have never seen anything other than an upwardly trending market. They don't know
Good
what to
point.
do as the market is shifting. They don't know how to say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, market times are lengthening. I look at my own county, San Diego County, December over December, 34.5 increase in market times year over year. And
Mm,
that group of people, that group of 2/3 of a whatever size class, have no clue what to do. They
no,
don't
they don't.
know
Agreed.
how to have that conversation. They don't know how to say something to that seller. They don't know what to do. And
And they're not reaching out and
no, no,
joining us
no.
in, for example, an SRS class,
Yes.
seller representative specialist class, where we can teach them how to have these conversations and how to handle a changing market. It's I don't know. I wish I had all the answers. I wish I could wave my magic wand.
You and I get frustrated on the same level. I did a promotional video for, I'm teaching in Sioux Falls in, I don't remember because you probably don't either, but I know it's on my calendar, so I'm going to be there. And it was RE&E, and I spoke specifically, how many of you guys that are out there watching my video know how to negotiate your value proposition, know how
Yeah.
to negotiate price points for the seller, know how to talk about changing markets. Do you know your statistics? Do you understand what the tracking is doing? And then I'm teaching SRS for North Carolina coming up, and same conversation.
Yeah.
Now we have sellers who've only been in charge. That's a, forgive the superficial number, but it's effectively true, for a very long time. How do we tell those sellers, hey, guess what?
Yeah.
It's a, and I've said this in every one of my videos. We are not in a buyer's market. We are not in a seller's
That is
market.
correct.
We are in a balancing. We're not
Yes.
anywhere yet. We're in that
Right.
place where I love teeter totters as a kiddo. And so I'm at that place where halfway you, halfway me, let's figure out how to make this work. That's where we are.
Yeah,
And we
we are.
have a boatload of agents who are not equipped to deal with that.
I think we have a lot of agents who don't even know how to determine what kind of market we're in.
Agreed.
And whatever system is in their MLS, and every MLS that I've ever looked at has an analytical system in there that will help you to determine if you know what you're looking for, whether it's a buyer's market, seller's market, or a neutral market. And they're just not, I talk about it all the time. I talked about it today, talked about it last week when I was doing broker management classes, about how everybody needs to know how to do that. People ask me all the time, what, in a nutshell, what are the most important things that we need to be able to do for our clients?
I don't know that the shell is big enough.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But if I'm going to get it into something that makes some sense, number one, you need to be able to price property. You need to be able to know how to do a CMA for your buyers and your sellers. So you need to understand pricing. You need to be able to negotiate. It is the single thing that we earn our money for. I'm not kidding. We're not talking, yes, I got to know how to market property. Yes, but I need to know how to negotiate. I need to know, and this is what I said all during 20 and 21, the buyers are not driving the bus. The sellers were driving the bus at that time. My job is to get my buyer on the bus with the seller. I can't make my buyer the bus driver. But if you're not on the bus with the seller, you are under the bus, and that makes you roadkill, and that's not a place you need to be. So somehow we need to get these people to understand it. You've got to be able to, and you have to know how to analyze the market and communicate the market. Your buyers and sellers can't win if they don't know what game they're playing. It's as simple as that.
It really
And
is.
those three things, and then I'll add into that for my number 4 is communicating your value proposition. I hate that phrase. I wish I could come up with a better one, but I haven't yet.
No.
What is it that I do for my buyers and my sellers that is valuable to them? It's not just what I do. And I try to teach it from the why. Why is this important? It's not just what I do or how I do it, but why is that important to you as my seller or my buyer? I don't think, I know for a fact, we do not have enough agents on the buyer's side let's talk that for a moment, that can articulate their value proposition to their buyers.
No.
They have no idea how to do that.
No.
And you and I have talked, you and I both know we got problems.
Mhm.
We got problems.
We
We
got
got
problems
lawsuits.
right here in River City.
Right here in River City. We've got lawsuits coming at us. I know there's been a little bit of a change in the whole DOJ thing. I know everybody, it's a win for NAR. What
Mhm.
happened last week with the DOJ, when the judge said the DOJ can't withdraw their settlement, we agreed, move on, everybody.
Mhm.
That does not mean that everything the DOJ was thinking about doing isn't going to happen because of the lawsuits,
Mhm.
because it still could happen. The lawsuits, to me, were more dangerous than the DOJ in the first
Question
place.
about it. I actually had that conversation with someone who
Yes,
was a student in my class because I was talking about it. I talk about it every class I teach.
me
And
too.
she
Me
sent
too.
me this note about the DOJ. I said, that wasn't what I was talking about. I was talking
Mm-mm.
about the class action lawsuits.
Yeah. Yeah. And we have people who are just not preparing themselves at all for
No,
the
they don't even
inevitable.
know, Lynn. That's the thing. And, I want us to be cautious here. I don't want to throw ourselves under the bus, but yet at the same time, the thing that's very distressing to me is I taught, what the heck I don't even remember what it was. I was up in LA. It was I had 60, almost 70 students in the class. And I asked that group of people if they understood or even knew what was happening with respect to class action lawsuits against blah, blah, blah. 3 people raised their hand.
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary. It's scary.
And brokerages, I had a conversation with a student up in LA last week, and brokerages, I don't know that they know how to explain what's going on, or
Right.
they don't explain it very well, or they don't make sure that their agent population understands. But it's I get it. I understand it intimately, but the people are not taking the time to see what's going
No,
on.
they're not.
They're just not.
I think they think that this is all just going to go away. And I just don't think it's too far. It's way too far for that to happen.
Mhm.
What the ultimate outcome of all of this is, it remains to be seen. But I think the bottom line is that we need to forget the
Yeah,
lawsuits for a minute. Let's do it a different way.
yeah.
Why am I not explaining my value to my buyer?
Mhm.
Why am I not trying to get loyalty out of the buyer?
Mhm.
Why are so many of our agents still running around showing houses, and there's 3 different agents the buyer's looking at houses with, because we haven't figured out how to explain our value proposition to them?
Absolutely.
I know there are some states that require a buyer representation
Not
agreement.
enough. Not enough.
Not enough. And here's the other problem. We've got brokerages right here in Illinois that require, and I hear this every state I teach in, so it's not just Illinois, but they require a buyer representation agreement. You know when the agents are getting it signed? Right before they write a contract, because they know they're not going to get paid if it's not in the file. So that buyer rep agreement, and then on top of that, they put 0 in the compensation field. So you've got a buyer rep agreement with 0 in there, or you've got a buyer rep agreement that didn't get signed until. How is that going to protect you if push comes to shove and we have no offer of compensation in the MLS?
Mhm.
I don't know. And I don't know why the brokerage companies are all just saying we're not gonna deal with this. We're just going to ignore it and hope it goes away.
Yes,
I think they're being foolish.
I agree. It's not going to go away. Not going to go away. I can share with you in my conversations, and I've interviewed a few friends about this whole subject, and I'm kind of grateful I am where I am in my career after it'll
Mhm.
be 37 years this year, and you're 40, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you and I both lived through the implementation of
Yes.
agency representation in the very first place.
Yeah.
We lived through that, and it wasn't pretty, and it wasn't a good time. We had sellers saying, I'm not paying them, they don't work for me. And I used to say, yeah, that's great. Did you ever know they worked for you before? Because you probably didn't, because they didn't. And so it was ugly, a dollar in all of that
Yeah.
kind of thing. But this is dramatically different. This is dramatically different, and it's when we look at agents becoming educated, we can't get them to show up. Uh,
No. I know.
And when they show up, we're going to give them stuff they need to hear for their careers. But how do we fix that? I don't know.
I don't know. I wish I had, I don't know. And I don't know if it's money. I don't know. So let's be honest. Is it that these courses are too expensive and they don't want, I don't think they're too expensive. So let me get out there and say, for all of the work that goes into the courses, everything we do to bring them a quality course, I do not believe that they're too expensive. And I know every association has their own fees. I get that. But is it that they just, but these are not new people necessarily.
No.
I get that the new people are looking at it going, I just dumped $2,000 to get in the real estate business. And I had this picture that I was going to get in the real estate business and somebody was going to hand me buyers and sellers and I was going to drive around in a nice fancy car, plug it in every once in a while.
Preach it, baby, because that's exactly right.
Exactly.
Coming into the industry clueless.
Yes.
That
Yeah,
they're
absolutely.
They're an entrepreneur. They're beginning a business. They have to invest in their business.
Right. And I'm also going to, and so I can see where they're saying, I don't have any more money to throw into this. I got to make some money before I can spend any more money. But what about our experience? What about the agents that just came out of the last couple of years? And I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, made more money than they've made probably in the last 30 years.
Correct.
And they're not coming to the class. They need to know how to retool themselves because, as you said, so many of them have been in the business less than 10 years. They don't get it.
Well, if I go back to the financial crisis, and I tell this story very often in classes I teach, my last corporate management job was in Rancho Santa Fe, California, which is obviously beautiful and very high end. San Diego County has two very expensive communities, La Jolla and Rancho Santa Fe. Rancho Santa Fe is considered old money. Now, I'm from Connecticut, you're from Illinois, and I'm actually from New York. So old is not the same old as in California.
Right.
And there was this cluster of people in Rancho who always did all the business, theoretically. And I was managing an office and I had whiners. We all have whiners when you're managing. And why is everybody else making money and we're not? So I did the research. I found out in my research that one particular agent who was always considered to be in the top echelon, making $250,000 a year for however many years, did not close one transaction in all of 2009. And you know why? She was afraid to tell the seller they couldn't get what they used to get. She was afraid of her seller. She was afraid of the client. She wasn't equipped emotionally, strength-wise, to be able to tell the truth. And so she did not sell one house in the entire year of 2009.
Wow.
That's tragic. And it also requires education. If you hire people like you and me, we're going to help you through that hump. But you first have to realize, like, maybe I don't know what I'm doing, and maybe I should find somebody like Lynn or Ginni to help me. Oh my gosh, Lynn.
Yeah, it's because the market changed and there were too many people who didn't know how to make that shift.
Correct.
We lost a lot of people between 09 and 12.
No question.
Because they did not know how to make the shift. They were afraid to have a conversation with the seller about they needed to have a hardship in order to qualify for a short sale. And I found more people who said, I can't sit there and ask my friends and even sometimes my relatives, what hardship do you have? I said, then they're never going to be able to sell their house as a short. You've got to set aside the feelings. I know this sounds awful because I think everybody, those people who don't even know who we are, who might listen to this, can tell by what we're saying. And we put the client first. Absolutely. But if you're going to put the client first, then your feelings have to be set aside.
Correct.
The fact that you don't want to have a conversation, a tough conversation, is not a reason for you not to have it.
But because what's your job? Your job as a real estate professional is to represent your client.
That's right.
So in the case of Rancho, most of these sellers, Lynn, were cash. So they could have bought a home for $5.5 million.
Right.
But now the house was worth $3 million.
Right.
So this agent literally had to tell the seller, if you really want to or need to sell, you're going to have to take a $2.5 million hit.
Right.
And It wasn't that they were a short sale necessarily. It
No,
was
it was
like,
just in that case, they weren't.
correct,
Yeah,
correct. So it didn't matter whether it's that condo that I had listed that I sold as a short, or the house in another area that I sold as a short. The emotions are the same, and rich people's emotions are the same. I don't want
yeah.
to lose $2.5 million.
It's no different than
Or
somebody in a $300,000 house not wanting to lose
exactly what I
$50,000.
was just going to say. I don't want to lose
Absolutely.
that $100,000 in value.
That's right.
Yeah, but we can only do what we can do, and that means they have to be in front of us, and we can't make them do that unless they choose to.
Well, and there's another thing that is brewing out there that, and I talked about it the other day, and I put it I also wrote the broker management course, the 12-hour mandatory course that all of those who hold a managing broker's license in Illinois have to take. And I put in the back of, in the resources section, NAR's report on the status of independent contractors.
Mm, mm,
And when I get to the resources and I go through that, which we have not talked about yet, I said, it's in here, guys. I want you to read it. I said, but here's what else I want you to do. I want you to think about the agents in your office.
mhm,
If they were employees and not independent contractors, and you were paying their salary, their benefits, and all of their taxes, how many of them would still be in your office?
mhm. Excellent
And
question.
I don't expect an answer. I do get an answer out of some of them who I know really well. But I'm telling you, this is, so then my point is, why are you not training them so they are doing better? Because your office is no better than the least common denominator in your office. I learned that years ago. I took over an office in a town called Downers Grove, Illinois. There were 60 something people in the office, and their production sucked. They were not anywhere near the production they should have been doing. And I wasn't in there very long when I realized part of the problem was this one agent. She
Mhm,
was a raving, and I'm
mhm.
not going to say what it was because everybody knows what I'm going to say. I caught her stealing a buyer one day. It was back in the time when we did floor time, and a buyer walked in, and the buyer looked around, and she jumped up from her desk and greeted them. And I thought that it was her client. I find out the next day when they came back in that she was not their agent. They just came in looking for an agent. She was not the floor person. She stole that client. I fired her.
Mhm.
I fired her. Now, I will tell you, the people who owned this big company I worked for called me in and told me that was not a good idea. And I said, and what do you want me to do about that? And I said, I don't like ultimatums any more than you do, but if you make me hire her back, I'm gone. Does
Right,
that matter? Because I will have no more control over my office at all if that's
right.
what you do. 6 months later, that office was cranking out
Of
real
course.
estate transactions
I,
like
again,
magic.
preach it, my friend, because what I have always
Yeah,
told people in brokerage leadership, when you get rid of the poison,
that's right.
everybody does better.
And recruiting. All of a sudden, I didn't have to go out and look for people. They were knocking on my
They're
door
coming to
asking me if
you
I had room
because
for
she
them.
wasn't there.
He
Yeah.
wasn't there.
Wow.
And yet we all know there's poison apples in a whole lot of offices. And I look at it, I just go, either you got to train them better, or you just got to, sometimes you just have to let them go. There's
I
not
had a
much.
guy that wanted to come to work for me, this Connecticut, and I see, he says, I see what you're doing in your office and it's doing really well, and I'd like to come to work for you. And I said, I can't hire you. And he said, why? Don't you know who I am? I said,
Mm,
yeah, that's why I can't hire you.
yep, because you just said that. Yeah, because you are a legend in your own mind. And I do not have any room in my office for legends in your own mind. So, but it's true. And and that's never going to change either, because there are too many managing brokers who think bodies mean success, and bodies don't mean success. Transactions mean success.
Correct. And I think what's coming in the industry is going to change some of that. But I always look at it this, when I've written a lot of leadership courses, I've written a lot of leadership stuff for real estate professionals. I've been honored to do that. And one of the things I say all the time in every leadership training I do when it comes to leadership and real estate brokerage is that you have to be brave. That means
Yeah,
you have to have
good point.
standards, and you have to have a clarity as to what your office culture is going to be. And then you must
Absolutely.
stick to that, and be brave to stick to that. And when you do that well, then you're going to have infinite success. It's what it comes down to.
And there are so many people. I equated it one time when I was doing leadership, and I talked about it kind of like with fair housing. And I know this sounds really weird, but we teach in fair housing that you treat everyone equally.
Mhm.
And you do this with this person, you do this with this person, you do this with this person. And then all of a sudden, this other person comes in and you change what you're doing. Well, the same thing happens in leadership. You're in trouble with fair housing when you do that. We all know it. But
Yep.
you're in trouble with leadership as well, because you did all of this the same. And then this person comes in and all of a sudden you change everything you're doing for that person. All you did was alienate the you know what out of the 5 or 6 or 15 or 85 or whatever that you treated the other way. And
That's correct.
and
Correct.
everybody needs special attention, and everybody needs a little hand holding once in a while. And we all know that. I'm talking about basic fundamental differences in how you approach people. So it's yeah, it's kind of like yesterday's football games when the calls by the refs.
Where else could we end but
When
Lynn?
the call,
Unless it was Lynn in hockey, that's different.
oh my God, the calls by the refs need to be the same on both teams. You can't be calling it against my Bengals and not calling it against. So, all right, I feel better now. I got that off my chest.
I'm so proud of you. You did very well. You held back for a very long time. Well, where else to end? Lynn, I adore you. You and I are peas in a pod. I love our relationship. I wish we got to talk more often. We don't, but when we do, there's always really great things that come of
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
I have just infinite respect for you. And I would like to
Likewise.
see
Likewise.
that what we've done here in our impromptu get together can maybe help someone's mind shift.
No. Let's hope. In an informal way, without charging them for a
No, yeah, we're
single
just kind of
class.
two ladies who do this for a living, talking
Yeah.
about what we need to do. So
Yeah.
I love you madly, Lynn, and
You too. Likewise.
I can't wait to see you the next time, my friend.
All righty. Talk
Mwah.
soon. Bye.
Bye, honey. So did you get a little bit out of that? I kind of thought we had some really kind of cool nuggets that should be shared. And number one, I just love talking to her. She's amazing. You can find her Lynn Madison seminars. She's everywhere in the Chicagoland area, but not just there. She's an educator that's all over the country, kind of like I am. But I could tell her passion and my passion are on a par, and we both care so deeply about educating the real estate population on how to be better on every level. That comes through. So I hope you got something. I certainly enjoyed hanging out with my friend, and I will see you the next time.